We will start with Representative Falk. And just address to each of you, you each scored 100% on the Legislative Scorecard this year. What drove your votes? Were there moments this session where it was especially difficult to stand firm on principle?
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you all for being here. It's an honor to talk to all of you. So often it's our people that vote are not necessarily in the know, and so this is an opportunity for you to be in the know, and we represent you, so I'm glad you're here. Well, when you talk about the 100% voting record, frankly, those were not difficult issues at all for me. I think sometimes when people think about the difficulty of voting, I feel like too many representatives, legislators seem like they're maybe concerned about their re-election prospects, and I just don't worry about that. I didn't come here for a career. This is something I want to do to try to make our state better for my kids and grandkids. I definitely care what people think, especially people in my district, but I don't worry so much about what the future is going to be. Like, oh man, if I vote this way, people are going to be upset with me. I really vote because I think it's a wise vote, and I think because it's something that needs to be done. So as far as difficulties, yeah, there were a few, but mostly it wasn't really the vote, which way to vote, but the outcome of the vote, particularly the tax bill and MAP's education choice bill. But I could run on, so I'm not going to, but I'll pass the microphone on.
Thanks, Terry.
All right, yes, thank you for being here. As far as the Montana Family Foundation bills, I would say I did not struggle with voting for these bills. They're good bills. For me, it's an act of obedience. If there's one person that I'm filtering my decisions through and pleasing him is where my votes end up. So that was not a challenge for me.
Yeah, no. See, I'll be short.
All right, hey, not bad. Okay, so another thing I want to ask you guys, and you can kick this off, Carl. When I wrote this, it was very recent, but it still is fresh for a lot of people. In light of the assassination attempt, or not attempt, but the successful assassination of Charlie Kirk, and the political vitriol that we experience right now in our country. People can't even unite around cheering on the U.S. hockey team, being Canada. People have to find a reason to be divided about that. How do you as a legislator find the courage to stand firm in this political climate today?
I think that these issues that the Family Foundation pushes and are behind are a lot of those issues that really are hot button topics for a lot of people. And sometimes you do feel, you do get some pretty good hate mail or phone calls or whatever on this kind of thing, but it never really bothers me. The only thing that bothers me about it is when I have on occasion had my kids get a little bit of pushback at school, not so much at grade school, but when they were in high school, they got a little bit. Our kids go to Trinity Lutheran, so through 8th grade, they're in a Lutheran school, so they don't have that. But when they're in the public high school, you get a little bit of that pushback. And that's a little bit hard to swallow, but it's also, I think, what Amy talked to too, we're called to do. And these are powerful bills, powerful choices to vote for and carry, and I think we're called to do it. You gotta kind of stand up for what you believe in and wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's the faith piece that you have to come back to that, realizing who's in control. I'm not gonna lie, there are moments where at the Capitol there's concerns. There was a riot that broke out a couple sessions ago, and it was concerning. it leaves fear, but when you remember who's really in control, just have to focus on that.
Yeah, I would echo those as well. Safety is definitely a concern of mine. I do feel like we're a little bit exposed, not so much in the community, but during session. The security was beefed up because of what Amy referred to, and so maybe it was a little bit better, but I guess I liken it to when you're getting ready for an athletic event. You're a player, you're a football player. There's a lot of things you think about before you get in the game, but once you're in the game, those things just go away, and you do what you have to be the best legislator. So it's kind of both ends.
All right, thank you. Going to our next question. So we are up there almost every day, as I was explaining, and if you guys have a chance to ever see us working up there, you'll probably see me walking alongside a taller, more handsome version of myself. That's my colleague Derek A. Stryker. He's 6'11", and he's our Chief Legal Government Affairs Director. And we are, I think that this session, we were really amazed because some things that we thought were very common sense were actually extremely controversial. And specifically, I'm thinking of things like the idea of protecting minors and adults alike from irreversible transgender surgeries and treatments and experiments. This was something that was very controversial up there during session, and we think that it makes a lot of sense to make sure that people are allowed informed consent, that kids cannot even give that. But we did not bring, but we helped work on Senate Bill 218 and House Bill 682. If you look at your scorecard, House Bill 682 allows individuals to bring a private right of action in lawsuits related to gender transition treatments performed when they were minors. So House Bill 682 was specifically targeting making sure that minors had this ability. Senate Bill 218 expanded it to adults as well. And 218 did not pass in the same kind of successful manner. It did pass, but it was severely dropped down. House Bill 682 has had an effect on the state. We have had facilities across the state stop prescribing to minors hormone treatments all across the state, close their programs. Thank you to your guys' work and many of the legislators in here. But this being such a controversial issue, what were some of the conversations like behind the scenes? Like, are you getting a lot of heat from this? Is it difficult to talk to your colleagues about this issue? Just kind of bring us behind the scenes of this kind of particular issue, especially someone who kind of directed the conversations in House Judiciary. I'm very interested.
Yeah, me personally, I would say I was not lobbied. People know where I stand on this issue, so I was not lobbied to vote for that concept, the negative of that concept. Back to what Representative Falk had said on the first question, there are people that are seeking re-election, and I think people would try to find one little section of a bill that just doesn't work with the law, so it would be their excuse and out for being able to vote for this, because the transgender issue is ugly out there. They're violent, as we're seeing. And I think if you're not principled, that you fall for the pressure. We have another representative that is transgender and I think tries to be nice to people that are confused and weak, I will say, in their principles. So I think there was some of that going on behind the scenes as well.
Let's hand it to Carl, because then I'll come back to Terry. I'll go first.
Yeah, so I've carried a lot of bills that are kind of similar to, along that theme, I guess. And so I too didn't get lobbied on it. But it is something that is, that issue tries to pull at your heartstrings, but not in a good way. And so I think that's where it confuses people into thinking they're compassionate. And that's why some people struggle with that. But for me, it's a pretty easy decision. And like you said, common sense, and it should be common sense. We should be able to get that in. I think this one was a good step in the right direction.
My first session, I really didn't know what I was doing. It's arguable that I still, maybe didn't know yet, but the whole lobby thing was unique to me, and it didn't take real long. By the second session, lobbyists just really don't come up to me, because I think they know where I stand. Now, there might be some things where things are on the edge. So I didn't, and I thought that our caucus was fairly well together on the House bill version. Wait, did I get that wrong?
No, that's correct.
Okay, and but I guess what I would say is I'm really inspired by Wilberforce. He was representing the slave trade in England a couple hundred years ago, and he was vastly outnumbered. But he didn't waver, and so if I was the only vote for this vote, I would vote for it. It's kind of a no-brainer. And I guess the other thing I would say, though, and this may lead you to your next question, or it's going to come up down the road, but I don't know. Any bill that we pass seems like can be challenged by some plaintiff, some organization, and then it goes before the courts. And so while it's working now, there's danger for all of these bills, particularly as it relates to life, family, and schools choice probably as well, that we get silenced basically by the third branch of government.
Yeah, thank you. I want to hit one more before we get to judicial transparency, because that is not one of our top issues that we necessarily focus on, but it impacts everything that we work on. That's the reality behind it. So it would be silly for us not to address it. But before we get there, there is also a very real challenge to just getting legislation through the body, through the legislature. And I think this last session, a lot of people were, maybe not everyone, but people who have not paid as much attention in the past were surprised by the infighting. I think the newspapers really picked up a lot of the stuff going on in the Senate. And I think that, for us, the thing that we care most about is what comes out of that building that impacts Montanans. Can we actually get stuff out of that building, however we can do it, to help people's lives be better, protect their religious liberties, protect parental rights, all these things. And I know that that's the heart of many of you up here and in the audience. But the reality is that a good number of people in the Republican caucus were a significant challenge. You had mentioned House Bill 682 kind of was generally unified, but Senate Bill 218 was entirely gutted by a group of Republicans and Democrats who put a poison pill amendment in there. And that made it almost a bad bill until the governor tried to fix it. But I guess my question is, are there specific examples of policy proposals that you feel like because of this infighting that is taking place, or this group of Republicans, who sometimes, we'll vote with our stuff sometimes, but, causes challenges in other areas. What was stalled, defeated, that would have been a good thing for the people of Montana because of this dynamic that was going on behind the scenes? Just feel free to comment on it generally.
I wasn't sure on the question you say, what was all defeated?
Yeah, bills, ideas that were kind of defeated and lost in this scuffle. Yeah. If you have any examples,
Sure.
If not, feel free to address it generally.
There's two. We dropped the ball, sort of, in the property tax area, and we could talk I could probably talk for a half hour just on that. But the second one is, just as important, if not maybe more important, and it's going to come back to what we were just talking about, election reform for justices. And this is, I've been in the session twice, in the House session, 2 sessions, and it was a complete repeat in 25 as it was in 23. 23, we came closer to the finish line. I think the vote was 51 to 49, but we lost for judicial election reform, and that was just for the ability for a judicial candidate to claim their party affiliation. It wasn't a requirement, just that they could. So then, second time around, we had less conservative legislators in the House in 25 by a factor of maybe 10, and maybe even a touch more. And anyway, so we lost that vote, I think 54 to 46. Frankly, we didn't get, this is a good list of Republican legislation, the ones that got signed. There's not much more beyond that, in my opinion, that got across the finish line.
Yeah, and I will just, be fully transparent to people in here. We had a tracking list of all the 53 pieces of legislation that we worked on, and Representative Falk is not wrong. There's a large number of those that became dead. So.
The one bill that comes to mind for me actually did cross the finish line, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but House Bill 388 was a bill to protect pregnancy care centers, and when the bill, it made it through the House, made it through the Senate Judiciary Committee, and when it hit the floor in the Senate, the 9 went with the Democrats to put a poison pill amendment on the bill that would have essentially set up pregnancy care centers in the state to be sued out of existence. Thankfully, by the grace of God, that amendment came off and the bill made it to the governor's desk, but it was 24 hours of, I don't want to say panic, but just emotion, trying to figure out how we could save that bill. Really unnecessarily based on the Republican platform.
Can you just go in a little bit more into why is there so much panic? Like, people hear, okay, this is a bill, but what goes on behind the scenes behind something like this?
Yeah. So this was probably the last 2 weeks of session, maybe even closer, which at that point, there is, every bill we've heard all session long could potentially be brought back up. So there is lots flying around between that, bills that have come out of committee, you're hearing things in the House, they go to the Senate, they may come back to the House with amendments, so you're kind of like a pinball game in your head with different bills and where everything is. So when I, as the sponsor, am sitting on the House floor trying to figure out how I'm gonna vote on certain bills that are coming through the House, and I'm getting texts that all of a sudden there's a poison pill amendment that they're trying to stick on my bill, then I'm texting with the lobbying group that's helping with the bill to try to figure out what we can do, how do we message this, who can help on the Senate floor to be able to stand up and refute the points here, because there's untruths being said about things. So just lots of movement happening, and that's just with one bill. So multiply that times 50 maybe in a day. It can become a little bit chaotic.
Yeah, and just to add, all the people that have come up and testified in the hearings, and then all of a sudden, drop of the hat, it's done, right? And for those who aren't aware, a poison pill amendment is when an opposition group will bring an amendment that they will claim to everybody does something good for the bill, but somewhere in the writing that they have put in there, it guts the original intent of the bill, and sometimes it even makes it really bad. And it makes it something that the original proponents don't want it to even continue on, because it's actually dangerous if it's passed into law. And so then that will encourage everyone to just kill it. But they try to sneak these in and hide them, and that's why we call them poison pill amendments. Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, so the split, the divide within the Republican Party is sometimes it rears its head on this stuff, and sometimes it doesn't. And I give credit to the Family Foundation and groups like them that put out scorecards, and they realize that some of these votes are important and are going to be put up as scoring for them. And so then they're more reluctant to just vote against it because of who's carrying it, because they realize that it is a good bill based on common sense that is part of the Republican platform that they should be voting for. And if they weren't being held accountable like the Family Foundation does, they would try and kill it more often. So I give a lot of credit to the Family Foundation, groups like them that will hold people's feet to the fire on stuff, on important votes. I think sometimes it's just personalities. Sometimes they really do want to hang with us on some stuff. Sometimes they just want to vote against you vote against your bill just because it is who it is. But it's an ebb and flow that is very variable, and it can depend on the day.
Go ahead and hold on to that mic there. So judicial intervention has long played a role in shaping whether newly passed laws in Montana are ultimately implemented or blocked. From your vantage point, are there signs of progress in addressing this challenge? What practical steps, whether through legislation, elections, civic engagement, can citizens take to help ensure that laws passed by the legislature are given proper deference and carried out as intended? Specifically here, we all, I think, in this room are aware that our Supreme Court is a challenge that acts as an activist court. Do you think that the legislature made progress this last session? And where do we go? Where do we go from here, if not, or if so?
I think we did make some improvements. Maybe not as much as we wanted to. During the last interim, in between the last two legislative sessions, we had a Senate Select Committee that sat on judicial issues, and we brought up, good night, I think it was 18 bills or something that we tried to get passed, something like it. It was a lot of bills, and very few of them passed. And they were, almost without fail, they were all really good bills. And they would have, we spent a lot of time talking with judges, talking with lawyers, talking with all kinds of people that are involved in that system, trying to see what we could do to reform it. And I think, everybody in this room knows. I've carried bills that have gotten signed. I've carried bills that have died on their own. I've carried bills that have gotten vetoed. I've carried bills that have gotten thrown out of court. Last session, I even carried a bill that hadn't made it through the legislature, and a judge ruled that it was going to be shut down. So they're really stretching. We need to rule in the judiciary for sure. And I think we did make a little bit of progress on that.
I think there was a little bit of progress as well. There were a lot of bills. It is a wide topic, and when you take 150 legislators, it's sometimes hard to narrow it down to exactly how this can come out. There was one great bill that came through that created the Judicial Performance Evaluation Commission, which will help voters know how their judge that they're voting on performs in their job, kind of like performance evaluation. And then the other piece I will say, back to the partisan divide and the struggles that we're having within the Republican Party, there were bills that were traded away as they were used as a token to, if you vote against this, we'll not vote for this judicial bill over here. So that to me was very disappointing.
Yes, disappointment is the word. As far as things being used as collateral or bait to gain votes, that very, very definitely happened in the judicial space. I watched it happen. There was a joke made during session at some function that I must have had a key to the Democrat minority leader's office because I was in there so much, trying to work with them on the property tax bill. But the problem was there were other people that had the votes that were sabotaging my efforts, and what got sacrificed on the altar was judicial election reform. I concur with Representative Regier on Senate Bill 45. I guess I would say disappointment almost isn't even a large enough word to describe the final outcome of what really didn't happen. If you put it in numbers terms, because I'm a numbers guy, if 10 would have been the optimal outcome, I think we got 0.5. Maybe that's too pessimistic based on maybe some of what the panel is saying, I don't know. It was harsh. Let me just focus, if I can, for a minute or so on what can you do? Okay, that's part of the question.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Okay. Super important. We need you to be engaged in understanding what's happening, and I love that you're here because this is a great spot to get that information. And you know, I don't know if you can look me up. I would have this conversation with any one of you multiple times because this is the kingpin for how we get things to happen in the direction they need to happen. And for conservatives, if you're a conservative, this should be super important for you. So, get information. That's going to involve time. Ask questions, listen, and then obviously you have to vote. I know this is kind of I don't like asking for money, okay? But this is important. You're not giving money to me. Give money to the candidates who are in contested elections, who talk to you in the right way about what the real problem is with the real solutions, which is judicial reform. Cannot possibly stress that enough.
All right, and I think there's a race coming up, right? A Supreme Court race?
Oh yeah, there's always races.
Who
Justice Stan Wilson is
Okay.
a choice.
All right. We were in Hamilton, and one of our members of the panel, Terry Nelson, every single time he answered a question, he had to shout his name over and over again. So I thought if it was mentioned once, that wouldn't be the worst thing. Thank you very much. Amy, you'll start out for the next one. So actually, pretty cool that we have Finley Warden here, because I have a question related to you, my friend. You don't get to answer it though. You can ask a question about it though later. So this summer, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Finley Warden's work as kind of an investigative reporter. I mean, that's really what he was doing. He went undercover again. This is kind of the second time. You guys may be familiar with this. You probably are. To discover that the Public Teachers Convention teachers were being taught how to hide radical gender identity curriculum and discussions with students, hiding it from their parents and worse. So last session, Representative Jody Etchart over in Billings, she brought House Bill 557 to rein in this issue, and it did not pass. So most people in this room, and you guys probably can join this statement as well, but we need you guys' perspective here, because to us, taxpayer money shouldn't be funding something like this. And this seems like common sense. We shouldn't have librarians letting 6, 7-year-olds checking out books telling them about sexual identity and that maybe they're the wrong gender. It just seems crazy. But Finley went undercover and he got recordings of things that were being taught in the trainings and the breakout sessions, and the people that were brought by the teachers union in front of these teachers, they had to listen to this garbage. And our teachers don't deserve that. They deserve what they came there for, which was to actually be educated, to be better at their work, to actually pour into the kids that they're truly invested into. So I guess I'm just curious, why is it so hard for something like that to get passed in the legislature? that like House Bill 557. We had proof. We had someone go undercover and reveal it, and it still was just so, it was impossible to get it through, just to put some accountability on that.
I have one word, and it's unions. The union force, the union lobby within the walls of the Capitol is fierce. And if you don't have courage and don't want to stand up against it, you're going to cave. And common sense bills end up dying. And that's within the walls of the Capitol, but I would say out in general, in public, people are afraid to stand up against unions and not be a part of them. And I think that's something society needs to look at in general. The mob bosses that they were intended to take care of, it's flipped, and now the unions have that force. So that's how some of these bills meet their demise.
Yeah, go to Carl.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd add to that, to the powerful union lobby, is that they lie. They stand up on the floor and say, that is not going on. I mean, they just blatantly lie about it. And we'll tell you that that doesn't happen at these teacher trainings. And you just have to be able to see through the lies. But that's when you get, people with a weaker constitution have trouble voting for that. So that's what you need. You need strong legislators that will vote the way they should. And sometimes that's hard to discern early on. And when but if you talk to them enough, you talk to enough people that know the candidates, talk to your friends and neighbors, talk to the people who are in politics that are following that stuff closely, and they'll help direct you in the right direction. Because when you're in our position, you get to know these guys better, and we have a pretty good feel for who's going to vote what way. So,
education and education bills that are pro public schools and this kind of information that Finley unearthed, they get whatever they want, pretty much. And we struggle to make traction on that. I want to talk about the solution, because we've talked about the problem quite a bit. The solution is schools need more competition. That's why we need school choice. Parents know their kids. Parents know what's best for their kids. We need skills over scores. We need opportunities for all, for school choice. Schools don't always work the same for each kid. They need to have options. And with competition, then we have choices. Schools are losing market share. Meanwhile, we're giving them more money. So in the private sector, if you're losing market share, the CEO has to take action, like fixing the product, because it's not the price. People, when they leave the public school, have to pay more to educate their kids. They're not saving money. They're actually spending more. So it's the product. I would say too that if you look at the list was circulating, and I can get this for you, by the way, if anybody wants to reach out. If you look at the list of who the unions funded in the election last cycle, and look at the list, there's no conservatives on there. There's probably 50 people on there, and there's quite a few Republicans on there. That tells you where they stand, where the union stands. And they put out a scorecard too, the public educators, and I got a score of 0 on that, thankfully, because I'm over 100%
Badge
against.
of honor.
My best through ever. And then one quick shout out to the county commissioners, because this issue started even probably before, when I was running elections for the first time at our local library. And Commissioner Abel and Commissioner Holmquist, and I don't see Mr. Brodell. But they appoint the board for the local library. And Mr. Ingram, who is chair now, does a fabulous job of filtering and stopping what the librarians really want our kids and our grandkids to put their eyes on. So this is a big issue. But starts and ends, I think, with competition.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, just so everyone knows, President Regier back there is working with our state superintendent, Susie Hedlund, to try to make sure that we have a bill lined up to try to address this issue again next legislative session. So we appreciate you taking the lead on that back there, Mr. President. And on that, you know, just briefly, if you guys, you know, want to comment on this at all, please feel free to. We did really work on one major piece of school choice legislation, and this was also a very contentious bill, House Bill 320. This was known as MAPS. It established Montana's Academic Prosperity Program for scholars. This is an education savings account initiative that allows families to use tax credit funded accounts for private schooling, homeschooling, tutoring, and other educational expenses. If any of you are familiar with the National School Choice Week, the Montana Family Foundation hosts a major rally of that in Helena at the Capitol. And this last, I guess just a few weeks back, maybe a month ago, we had that up at the Capitol in the Rotunda. And it was a great event. We had Governor Gianforte speak and lots of people. But that bill was something that we were supportive of to try to get some real school choice into the state of Montana. Again, you know, we are very interested in making sure that families across Montana have the right and the ability to educate their children as they desire, free from government, you know, coercion or influence. And we felt like that was a good step. I know that there were some concerns from some of the homeschool community, just to address it out at the front, at the get-go. And to let everyone know, you know, there was an effort very deliberately to work with the National Homeschool Defense League, I believe it was, to make sure that that bill did not harm homeschool efforts at all in the state of Montana. There was an amendment that was brought to make sure that that was fixed right at the very beginning. It would have been nice to have it before it was even introduced. But I know Representative Falk, you may have some thoughts about that bill, but I guess, what do you guys want to see next session regarding school choice? The governor has said that it is his top priority for next legislative session. But he gets to work with you guys, and you guys get to tell him what your top priorities are too for school choice. So I was just curious if you guys had any ideas on where we need to go with that. Go ahead.
Real quick, we just need more conservative legislators.
Easy. That's an easy one, right?
Yeah. Piece of cake.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even get to see it in the Senate because it didn't make it, right? So, and that is, it was kind of surprising that school choice wasn't a bigger issue for us and hasn't been over the last two sessions. I thought that we would have been able to see a little bit more of that. I'm glad to see that the governor's going to be pushing it next session. That will help because like it or not, the governor has weight to push bills, and we'd like to see him on our side on this one, so that'd be good.
All right, I think we're back to Carl. Who's gonna take the next one? Okay, so I would like to go into life issues a little bit here. And because I have the sponsor of a key piece in here, you know, we fight for life and advocate for life, not just for the preborn, but for those at end of life. And in the state of Montana, we have an awful loophole that allows for physician-assisted suicide in cases where there is consent supposedly given, but it is not regulated at all. It is not recorded down. There is no way to know who is actually giving consent? Are they able to give consent in their condition? All these things, lots of questions. But the Supreme Court said, we're gonna leave this in the hands of the legislature. And we believe that those at end of life who are in vulnerable situations, their lives need to be protected as well, and we stand against that. Physician-assisted suicide. So Senator Carl Glim, you brought the bill. You were the sponsor, and this is probably one of the hardest issues emotionally that we work on because everyone has a story or knows somebody who's went through something very, very personal, very hard, and you want to be sensitive to those things. But I think that the debate in the Senate was very interesting to watch. And I was just curious if you wanted to speak a little bit about that bill, if you had any thoughts about it for next session.
Sure. So I've carried this bill, I think, four, maybe 5 times, something like that. It seems like we get it just a little bit closer every time, but we haven't gotten across the finish line. The ugly truth about it is that physician-assisted suicide is illegal in the state of Montana. But the Baxter decision, which I think was in '97, clouded the issue. They said that if a physician gets prosecuted for it, they can raise consent as a defense during the homicide trial. It's a homicide trial. It is illegal. And that's the short answer to this problem. All we're trying to do is clarify that, because through that Baxter decision, they have confused the issue and led people to believe that it is legal in the state of Montana, which it is not. It is legal in other states, some other states. Recently, it was just allowed and made legal in Canada. And Canada is the perfect example of why we don't want this to continue in the state of Montana, because it is a slippery slope that is crazy. The percentage of people that now die of physician-assisted suicide in Canada is 5%. 5% of all people that die in Canada are being killed by their doctor. It's a crazy statistic, and it's only been legal for just a few years. Some of the stories that have come out of Canada, and I can point to Europe, because in Europe they've been doing it for longer. They're actually starting to curb it back because they're seeing the ramifications of it. But Canada is the perfect example of what to point to. There was a homeless gentleman that went and got approved for physician-assisted suicide in Canada. This was about 4 years ago, I think, and it had only been legal for 5 or 6. So he got approved for physician-assisted suicide. One of the TV stations heard about it, and so they went and talked to him and said, hey, we want to hear your story. And he's telling them, well, I'm homeless, and I got no job and no money, and it's just, maybe it's just better if I'm just dead. And somebody started a GoFundMe for this guy. And he ended up with money, and he ended up with a place to live, and he got a job, and he's living great. It's the slippery slope. And I really do truly feel for the people that want to do this, because I know they think that it's an easier way out. But there are precious moments at the end of life. There are conversations that get to be had that when someone leaves too early, don't get to be had. We all know of someone who's been told they have 6 months to live, and that was 3 years ago, right? Doctors are wrong. This is something that we need to fix in the state of Montana. And I'm back for one more session. I'll try one more time.
Feel free to add on if you want to. Otherwise, I would like to ask a question on CI 128.
I will just add one thing there,
Please
because
do.
I did have another legislator, and I with Senator Glenn would say that I don't doubt that it is hard at the end of life. There are hard things that happen. I would just say that's not our place to take life. And I did have a legislator, when I presented the idea of what's happening in Canada, basically was told that, well, we just need to put better guardrails on it down here in Montana and we'll be fine. So it is a slippery slope, and it starts with respect for life, from conception to natural death.
I can be real quick. Medical assistance in dying is what they call it in Canada, MAID. And I just don't want to be a part of society that gives up on people. How can we find a better solution? My word. I don't know, and then one quick thing, I don't know if you saw the Instagram post where a guy's interviewing somebody about aborting puppies. And the individual he's interviewing says, oh, no, we can't abort those puppies. No, they need to live. And then he transitioned the conversation to humans, and then they said, uh-oh, their jaw dropped. I mean, we're giving more value to animals than we are to humans. It's crazy.
Yeah. Amy, I think you're next. Tell me if I'm wrong here. One thing I wanted to add about that MAID program is, I think I just read this last week, and it feels like I see it come up multiple times, that they are trying to allow for aid in dying for minors without parental consent. This is a news story, and they're trying, and it's being defeated, but they're actually bringing it up, and they're trying to pass that into law, or people trying to. And I think that it's important to know that there are financial incentives to that. But there's also a spiritual component to it. And I didn't mention this, but one reason that we try to host our events into churches and to try to encourage the congregation or people nearby congregations to join us is because people who are following Jesus Christ, it's almost like we have a sixth sense. There is a spiritual war taking place in the world that we can sense and we can see, and it has manifested itself in all kinds of ways, but it especially manifests itself up at the legislative session. And so I think it is Christian people especially who are able to see these things for what they are. And so that's just out front why we choose to partner with churches to host these events, because these are spiritual faith issues, most of them. We really believe that. Amy, sticking on the life issue, CI 128, a lot of people worked really hard on this. This is the unlimited abortion initiative that went through last summer. Was it last summer? That was a busy summer. And we had a lot of people in Kalispell who were working really hard. People in here, please raise your hand if you work to try to defeat CI 128 in here. Amen. Thank you so much. Can I give a round of applause to these people? Please put your hands up again. Thank you. This was a difficult effort because we were outspent pretty significantly. But we had people driving around on their own gas tanks doing what they could to go and try to record people, make sure that they were doing this properly, the signature gathering. Unfortunately, it passed. And I will let everyone know that my colleague, who is also our Chief Government Affairs, he's also our Chief Legal, Derek A. Stryker, and he is still fighting this in the court. It's not getting a lot of attention in the media and in the newspapers, but we still have an avenue that we are addressing this in the court. So it is not done at this point. It is, yes, it is in the Constitution, it is law right now, but we are still fighting it. So I want you to know that. But with this passing, it really tied the hands of the legislature for being able to do a lot to try to save, those precious children from abortion, because it makes sure that that you cannot do anything to take away that right to abortion that is now in the state constitution. So I guess my question for you is, what would you say were some of the top pieces of legislation that you think still addressed that life issue that actually made a difference? And then where do you think we need to go next session?
So as I mentioned earlier, House Bill 388 was a bill that protects the First Amendment rights of pregnancy care centers. So a pregnancy resource center or pregnancy resource clinic doesn't have to refer for abortions, or they don't have to talk about abortions. If that's not part of their mission, they're protected. So that was a huge win. Let's see, was it Senate Bill 154 also prohibits the sale or purchase of human body parts under the revised Uniform Anatomical Gift Act by explicitly banning the sale or purchase of whole human bodies or fetal tissue. So these were two bills that we were able to get through. They are not challenged in court, but like Patrick said, CI 128 has really put limits on what we're able to even discuss. Well, we could discuss them at the legislature, but the Constitution now says that we can't pass those or put them in the law. So, next session, I would defer, I think, to some smarter legal minds as to what we can do to get around, well, the other spectrum of life. But yeah, we've got some work to do, and I just would encourage people to be praying about that lawsuit against CI 128. CI 128 is evil, and it's in our Constitution, and it needs to be overturned.
So smarter legal minds, I'm gonna have to put my Bobcat diploma up against the lawyers out of Missoula. But I would say, I think I give a lot of credit to the Family Foundation here, because I think it's not getting a lot of press, but that lawsuit that they're bringing, I think, has a real shot. So the full language wasn't printed on the ballot, and that's what it says has to happen. And so I think he's got a real shot at getting that turned over. And if he does, then we get another bite at the apple, right? There's another real caveat to this thing, and I said once I have one more session. The benefit to me is that when I go back for the next legislative session, I don't have to be sworn in under that new Constitution. But anybody that's running for election right now has to be sworn in under that new Constitution. So I pray, and I hope you all pray, that Derek is successful in that lawsuit, so that when we send a bunch of good people down there to be legislators and they get sworn in next session, they don't have to swear to uphold that portion of the Constitution.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jerry.
Real quick, it does seem like it's outside legislative influence at the moment. I just remind you about Wilberforce, and I appreciate that you started this meeting off with prayer. There's somebody who can change it, and we just need to appeal to the Heavenly Father over and over. And I would also say, support the Montana Family Foundation. You guys this is your focus. This is what you do year round. We should support you. We love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, all right, we're going to go into kind of some religious liberty bills, and we actually have one of the sponsors. I think, let me see here. House Bill. We're going to look at House Bill 388 and 655. So 388, again, is the one that Representative Regier that you brought, right? House Bill 388 that you sponsored. So we've talked a little bit about that. House Bill 655 prohibits state government discrimination against adoption and foster care providers based on their religious beliefs. Why do you think protections for faith-based organizations right now are so important? Do you think that that's something that's under attack right now? is at risk of being under attack right now, and we have to protect those. Just any thoughts on that? Let's go with, I think it's up to you, Terry.
All right, sounds good. Well, we battle not against flesh and blood, but the spiritual dark forces, and it's really not a surprise. The difficulty is it's hard to know where the arrows are coming from and how big they are and where they're going to attack. Yeah. Let me look at 655 was which one? Discrimination against adoption? Yes.
Yep.
I mean, there you go. I mean, that's a proactive bill. I don't know. I mean, short of, I'm going to repeat myself, but short of getting help from people who are in this space and helping us figure out what to do, and then we're going to take the arrows. I mean, it surprised me in my first session the level of the spiritual battle on the floor of the House. It wasn't what I expected. And I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. The enemy is very strong. So pray for us. And I would again evoke the name of Wilberforce. I'm not going to give up. I have kids and grandkids, and they have a future.
So there is a wonderful legal firm across the world, Alliance Defending Freedom, that has litigated many, many religious liberty cases. So we've got a lot of examples out there of what we don't want to be in Montana. I think of Jack Phillips, a cake baker in Colorado, who has been to the Supreme Court a couple times because he refused to bake a cake for a gay couple. So bills like House Bill 388 and 655, they're just setting up Montana citizens to be able to live out their conscience and produce a product or care for children in the way that they see that they need to do that before their creator.
Yeah, these were good ones. I got to stand up on the floor of the Senate and say that, my youngest daughter is adopted, and we didn't have our religion used against us when we adopted her, but I don't want to have that happen before we're making a law to stop it. So these were great bills, proactive, getting out there in front of it, and they were good, yeah.
All right, my next question, I'm going to jump back just a little bit because I believe we have the sponsor. Braxton, you did House Bill 400, right? Yes, sir. All right, great. That's why I wanted to bring this up. So House Bill 400 prohibit public schools and state institutions from penalizing students or employees for refusing to use non-biological gender pronouns or compelled speech, and allows individuals to file lawsuits for monetary damages and injunctive relief if their rights are violated. I'm ringing myself. So I wanted to bring this one up because I had a great story that I wanted to share with everyone. So I was up in the House gallery when the debate on second reading was going on, and Representative Mitchell presented the bill, and then there was a lot of comments on the House floor about this bill. And we supported this bill. We thought this was a great free speech bill. We thought it was also a religious freedom bill. And we do support some free speech bills as well. But this one was so great because I think it was Flathead High School had a whole bunch of high school students that were actually up in the gallery at the time. Is that right? Was it Flathead High, Braxton? Do you remember?
It was the school that Lucas had with them, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that was, it was the Heritage, not in Evergreen School.
Ah, gotcha. So it was really encouraging to me because I was watching all their bills, and I'm working on stuff. I was watching them and their interest, and they were very bored, listening to you guys' work. Not that you guys are boring, but like sometimes, renaming highways and stuff gets a little boring sometimes. But that issue came up, and they all just like sat up in their seats, and the legislators on the left side of the aisle, who were very opposed to this and thought that this was bullying and that this was not good and that this was going to cause all these problems, they were just, respectful, and they, you'd see a head shake maybe a little bit, but pretty just respectful, not really doing much. And then a lot of the Republicans who were very supportive of the bill started speaking on it. Braxton spoke on it very much. I think Lucas spoke on it. There's lots of people who did. And they were like excited and giddy, and they were like, yeah, that's right, and stuff like that. And their teacher had to kind of calm them down and stuff. But it's very interesting because it gave me an insight. I'm very fascinated with movements, and I'm very fascinated with, what constituencies are thinking about these issues, as I know you guys care a lot about. And it was cool to see a group of high schoolers or students, what they cared about, what they were interested in. And so I'm curious, this is kind of a larger question about constituencies. Do you have a lot of people that are contacting you constantly? Do you have people that actually really change your opinion on something? Because sometimes you'll get probably hundreds and hundreds of emails on one thing. Do these things actually change your opinion on these bills that you're working on? Just give a little bit of information on kind of your interaction with your constituencies, how they impact your votes. And I think
In front of you.
yeah, all right.
Take it. I think it depends on what the topic is. If it's something that I'm not very well versed in, then I'm open to listening to people. If it's something like House Bill 400, I know how I'm going to vote on that, and I would hope that I represent my district well on that one.
Yeah. I'm reminded of something that Terry said. I had one of the lobbyists come up to me one time when I was a freshman, and somebody said something about walking through the basement, and they're the first floor, not the basement, first floor, and they said, yeah, I hate walking through the first floor because lobbyists grabbing you all the time. And I was like, what are you talking about? And one of the lobbyists grabbed me and he says, yeah, nobody talks to you because they don't know how you're going to vote. I think my constituents are kind of the same way. I think they know how I'm going to vote. I don't get an awful lot of calls. There are a few hot button topics that you do get a lot of calls on right now. It's property taxes. For a number of sessions, the great number of phone calls I would get were about raw milk. That was a very hot topic. And hey, if you want to drink raw milk, have at it. Freedom.
I would have brought some for those cookies, but I was
There you go. I'd have let you drink it.
Might have been against the law too.
But I think as far as constituencies go and where they're thinking, and I think what kind of drives into this message, and I think it's encouraging, and it has to do, something you touched on earlier, Charlie Kirk has a movement that is growing among young people. We see more young people involved. I have a friend of mine that is not religious. His wife is not religious, but they have kids. They're not young anymore, but they're in high school. His son is getting up and reading the Bible every morning. His friends are doing a Bible study. He comes from a family that is not a Christian family, and yet they're turning to God because they need something. And I think things just went too far too fast to where everybody thinks this is great. Wait a minute. Before 5 years ago, a lot of these issues were they were almost, it was trendy, right? It was trendy for the gay and the transgender and all that stuff. And it changed so fast and they went so far. Now everybody's saying, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And I think the tide is turning, and that's good for us. And young people are figuring out that there are things that are important. and there are truths that need to be told, and they don't see that in that stuff, and so they're looking somewhere else. And they're finding it in God. Thank goodness.
When I got in my first session, I wanted to use text messages to communicate with a bunch of people, not all of which are constituents in my district. And I think I got a notebook full of like 5 columns, maybe 70 people. And the people were really overjoyed to get information on somewhat of a regular basis, and I would get feedback from them. So text messaging is really helpful for not just a knowledge base, but a support. My daughter, who has some friends in the room, by the way, who are awesome. Is it okay to shout out?
Of course, we love families at the Montana Family Foundation.
Tanea, who's holding the baby in the back. Awesome. Started an amazing group to fight CI 128, which I was very happy to be a part of. I see Blaine over here too, and his wife Rachel. Bryce, of course, also back there. These are my daughter's friends. That's how I met them. My daughter's 28 years old. She's been an enormous support for me. One quick story. During session last time, I was really struggling, and it was a fight. And I was on the phone with her. She said, "Dad, you got to remember whose child you are. You're a child of the Father. Stop looking in and look up." And so, yeah, support from family, friends, and constituents is huge for me.
All right, because you didn't answer, Amy, you get to answer this one again. And I bring this question up because you make me think about this question. So I don't know if you guys have seen Amy when she is chairing the House Judiciary Committee. This is an awful committee. Like, I mean, this got really smart people in it, but it's got the hardest issues at the legislature, in my opinion. I mean, the most brutal issues. Like, they're very emotional. You get very dynamic characters who come to this committee sometimes. I know that this is where the drag show, bills go. So Amy shows a lot of patience while she sits there as chair to make sure that her colleagues on the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle all get, equal treatment and equal access to the testimony and all this stuff. And it's incredible. Your patience up there is incredible. And I asked her one time, how is it that you're able to do that? And frankly, President Regier back there, he has the same attitude about him. It must be something to do with their parents who are up there. But I think it also has a lot to do, you told me, with kind of your spiritual disciplines, your relationship with Christ. And so I'm not going to let you guys pass on this one. I need a short answer because we got like 4 minutes till we go to Q&A. But I want to know, what are the actual tangible spiritual disciplines that you put in your life during session that keep you level-headed and able to withstand all the pressure? Like actual spiritual disciplines, things that you're doing in the morning or in the evening to spend some time with our Lord. What does that look like? Go ahead.
I'm going to expound just a smidge. Before I was elected to the legislature, I remember distinctly thinking, I need to know what I believe, and the deception is real out there. And I thought, I need to know the word, and it needs to be a routine practice. So I developed a habit of getting up every morning and reading and praying, and that's kind of where it started. So still do that today.
Somebody said once that our hearts have holes in them, and the holes is the mistakes, the sins, the things that we think wrongly on. And when we put the Holy Spirit into the Word, because of our mistakes and our misunderstandings or just selfishness, the Spirit leaks out. And so it's necessary to keep putting the Spirit in, or your heart is then empty. And you know, we're not made to be alone. We're made to be in communal relationships like church and friends and family, and so that support is huge. And just one quick thing, one little statement. Somebody once said that wisdom is knowing what to do, but virtue is doing it.
A lot of prayer. And there is a Bible study that we do there. And I have found that really helps me to go to that Bible study in particular and hear other legislators that are there. It's not just open to legislators, it's open to all staff too, and people from the governor's office. And I get a lot out of that, doing that once a week. And when I started, my kids were really little, and I made a commitment that I would just drive home every weekend so I could be with my family and go to church here at home. And this is 14 years, and I still do it, even though my kids aren't little anymore. 2 of them are gone, but I still think that's important. It's good to stay grounded, connected to back home, and that it's not all about Helena.
Thank you so much. I just want to add on a really great effort that the Montana Family Institute, our C3 organization, takes part in to try to make sure that we are doing our best to try to make sure that legislators are being prayed for and supported. If you're unfamiliar, the Church Ambassador Network of Montana, this is a national effort, but it is supported through our C3, the Montana Family Institute. Keith Downey out of Joliet area is the lead, and now Steve Bostrom is now working with him, and Steve was the capital minister for a long time. But they have a really great effort where they are pairing pastors up with the lawmakers or the elected officials in their area to support them and pray for them, and to be a resource of someone who's not asking them for something, but is someone that they can be asked of by these elected officials who need support. And I just got to tell you a quick story. During the legislative session, they would go up by the fan window on the third floor. There we go, thank you. It's been so long, I just want to go back there already. And they would set up a table, they'd get some sandwiches for people and stuff like that, and they would hand out Bibles, beautiful Bibles with their names imprinted onto them, and they would invite all these pastors to come up from all around the state. And I got the blessing sometimes to be able to go, introduce these pastors to the people, the legislators that they were kind of set up with, to introduce them and show them where they were going to be, because I was pretty good at finding where people were at that time. And you could just sense the spiritual weight in that building shift, because we literally had pastors all across the building praying with elected officials. It didn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, praying with them. Even if they weren't partnered up with them, they would be praying with people and having conversations. And it was just like lighter when the Church Ambassador Network was there. And so I really encourage you guys to check out that ministry, that effort. There is no secret tit for tat. There's no once they make a relationship, then we're going to ask them, to vote for our stuff. We don't do any of that. It is completely genuine to try to make sure that our legislators are prayed for and supported by their, pastors or ministry members in their community. So with that, I've already taken 2 minutes of Q&A. So with that, I'm going to probably walk around this room and hand this mic. And then don't feel like you all have to answer the question. You may have a question for a specific person, just make sure you address that. Try to keep your question under a minute long. We don't need a long background, preferably. But feel free to address it, or anyone can just pick it up and answer. And if multiple people want to answer, you guys can do that and just decide who wants to take the hot mic. Cool?
Good.
I know we have some candidates in here, and I would ask that we are not going to be doing like campaign speeches as part of your questions. No pledges, we're not asking them to pledge anything. This is focused on these issues largely, and I will be kind of moderating, so I'm pretty good at taking the mic. So anyways, who wants to go first? Anybody got a question for these guys? All right. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We refuse to answer that guy's question.
1 minute, yeah. Carl, I think Senate Bill 437, you sponsored that, defining sex,
Yes.
and it passed the House and Senate, but it never went to the governor. Are you free to talk about that now?
I am free to talk about that. So that was the notorious bill that I talked about that got slammed by a judge before it had even passed, right? So the session before in 23, I passed a defined sex bill. That got taken to court, and there was an injunction on that bill, and they delayed it long enough that while we were in the 25 session and I brought a new bill that was different but similar, the judge said this one, before it actually got out, so before the draft was out, they said that it was the same bill and that they would file an injunction against it also. So what happened with that is that they haven't ever finished up the lawsuit on the first bill. And as long as that lawsuit is not finished up, and the only thing that's not finished up about it is the awarding of attorney's fees. That's all that's left to do. And the judge is waiting. The judge is waiting to see who will blink first. Will the speaker sign it, and then it has so many days to go to the governor will sign it, and then they can file an injunction because they can enjoin it with that lawsuit. If they get the attorney fees figured out and would claim them, that lawsuit is closed. Now what happens is 2 more bills passed that are important for that lawsuit. The defined sex bill was brought by me and I'm a senator from Flathead County. There was a bill that said if you're going to challenge a bill on the constitutionality of it, you have to bring that suit. You can't judge shop. You have to bring that suit in the county in which the primary sponsor was. So that means if they were going to file suit against my new defined sex bill, it would have to come in Flathead County. There's another bill that says if it's a constitutional issue, you can demand that it be a jury trial, not just a judge figuring it out. A jury trial in Flathead County is not going to find that the state can't define male and female because we make too much sense in Flathead County. That's why they judge shop and they go to Missoula. So really, it just goes to highlight how bad the judiciary is. They're playing games with these bills. It's very common sense. It's pretty simple. Male and female. Nobody has a problem with that, except a few people. And
How long can that bill hang out there?
it's unknown. We're in uncharted territory. My guess is they won't. It seems to me that the bill would die upon the swearing in of the next legislature, but that's not called out. So probably we don't get anywhere with it, which is really unfortunate. But it goes to the point how important these judges' races are. So it was mentioned before, we told you last election, we told you vote for the Suns. We got one of them, we got Swanson, but we didn't get Wilson. And he's running again, God bless him. We need to get him in.
Yes.
So vote for Dan Wilson.
Yes.
I'll make a quick plug too. I know I'm taking up way more of the time than I'm supposed to, but another plug for the Family Foundation. If you want to donate to the Family Foundation, a really easy way is to license your cars with their license plate, and a little bit of that money goes to support the Family Foundation. They're really cool license plate. I've got them on almost all my cars. It's a super cool Liberty Bell flag, looks awesome, and it supports their progress. So do that.
Appreciate it. You guys may see some billboards around the state. We're working on an effort there with those on them. Next question. Yeah, ask her. You guys better wake up. Look at your text. See what you wrote down for your questions.
Yeah, so we obviously need judicial reform, and I love this is a great example of that. What would the proposed bill accomplish? How do we tackle this problem?
We had a lot of bills to try and do that. I think it's really tough for judges because when we sit up here and you guys go to these forums, we can tell you stuff. Judges can't tell you anything. So it's really hard to get into their mind and figure out what they believe. And they talk in such generalities, it really just becomes he looks like a nice guy or she looks like a nice gal, and nobody really knows them. I mean, other than the handful of people that are friends with them, right? What we need is for them to be, we want to say that the judiciary is blind and has no bias. How's that working out? Not very good. We know they have a bias. We know they have a leaning. They should at least be able to disclose it if they want to. I mean, that's one of the bills that we put up. Let them say that if they want to put an R behind their name, they want to put a D behind their name, let them do it. They don't have to, but let them do it. I think one of the wins that we got, and Representative Regier talked about it a little bit, Senate Bill 45, I think is a sleeper of something that is going to be helpful in that arena. We'll be able to evaluate those judges through that process and be able to put out a report of what those findings are for how good those judges are doing at being impartial, at not being biased, at doing their job the way they're supposed to. And I think if we can get that information out in front of people, that will make a difference in whether they're seeking re-election or they decide to retire. And I think that is a good thing. We've found out that the judiciary in Montana is very one-sided, and it is extremely they've taken way more power than they were supposed to have. They're ruling on stuff that really isn't in their purview. Election stuff. The legislature is supposed to make the rules on election law, and yet the judiciary just comes in and wholesale. I can tell you immediately when the lawsuit gets filed, I can tell you who the answer is going to be. So it's obvious that they're biased. I'll try and shut up. Senators don't have a time limit in the Senate. Anybody that remembers Verdell Jackson, I mean, he proved it on and on, but I try not to do that.
Anyone else want to answer that, or are you guys good?
I'll just add there too, just so everybody is aware, there is several groups that are trying to put in the Constitution that you cannot have partisan judges. So be aware, they're out there gathering signatures now. Don't sign it, spread the word, don't vote for it.
And I'll just say, it's not on the scorecard, but it is a bill that we worked on during session, and it was partisan elections. And we actually, our organization, I'm not making this statement on behalf of the people at the front, because people voted differently, and I couldn't even tell you who voted how. But we urged the legislature to support required partisan elections for justices, and not just at the Supreme Court level, but the district level too. And we brought that, well, we didn't bring it, we supported it because we believe, the Family Foundation believes that voters, again, need as much transparency as possible to be able to make the decisions on who they're going to support. And we believe that a partisan identifier is a piece of information. And if someone does not want to identify as a Republican or Democrat, there's an opportunity to identify as an independent, if that's how they choose to. But you know, our chief legal, he likes to say that just because they put on a black robe doesn't mean all of a sudden they're not partisan. They are partisan. We want them to be impartial, right? We want them to be non-biased, and that's the key. So that's at least from the perspective of the Montana Family Foundation. But I do believe that at the National School Choice Rally, the governor did say that he wants to have partisan elections for judges be an optional thing. Like he wanted a bill for it to be optional. He mentioned that. So, any other questions? There we go.
Thanks, Patrick. So in 2030, the next revise of the state constitution is going to be coming around. I've seen that somewhere and I just looked it up. So what are we going to do as legislators to take and start advertising, campaigning? Because there's a number of things. It's not just family issues, there's environmental issues, there's some stuff within our constitution, the way it's written. Is there anybody in the room, and I'll hand it off to any other legislator, on what their thoughts are and how we're going to move forward on this over the next 4 years?
I would like to keep it with our three up top here, if I could, please. Unless you want to hand it off, you're welcome to hand it off.
I know that, I don't know, I know that Rob Nadelson is doing a lot of work on this. He is a constitutional scholar, used to teach at U of M for a long time. Now he's based out of Colorado, has run quite afoul of the state Supreme Court in Montana because he calls them out and he's just honest about it. I mean, he's not even one-sided. He's just being impartial and calling things out. And what he says about our Constitution is that there are so many things that are very poorly written in it. It's very ambiguous in many spots. It's, you know, I think that one of the easiest ones to point to is the clean and healthful environment. What does that mean? No one knows. And so it just allows the judiciary to run wild with it. Again, it's back to the judiciary, kind of a lot of it, because there's ambiguity in the Constitution. It goes to the courts, right? They can show in the discussions during the 72 Constitutional Convention that they didn't want to put anything in there that would dictate about abortion. And yet, the judiciary figured out a way to say that privacy somehow, that boggles my mind, because one of the hardest things to hide is when you're 9 months pregnant. I don't understand how that's privacy, but somehow they wrapped abortion into the privacy clause, which is, if nobody could look it up. I was confused. I was like, I'm going to look this up, figure if I can study. It's literally that simple. It says you have a right to privacy. There's nothing else there. There's no depth of privacy. There's nothing that, that's a leap over the ocean to get that to abortion. I don't even know. But that's my MSU law degree. Another plug for the Montana Family Foundation does a good job of, they are the only resource when it comes to looking up judges and trying to figure out a little bit about them. For years, how many years now have you guys been doing that?
I couldn't tell you before I came on board.
It's
been maybe a decade at least.
You want to give a little synopsis of how that
So the
goes?
MontanaVoterGuide.com. I'm a little hesitant to tell you to go there right now because I'm not 100% sure it's working right now, but it will be. And it has information on the donations that the judges have made. I will tell you that it can be something that you still need to look into a little bit more yourself, because I believe that last election cycle, Dan Wilson was listed on there as donating to a Democrat. And it was a family friend of his. It was like one person that he had donated to. And if you had looked at that, but like, oh, well, he donated to a Democrat, I'm not gonna support him, you would have been mistaken. So, there's still some deeper research that you need to do, but MontanaVoterGuide.com is something that is meant to provide some insights to the judges' donation records. And we're compiling it right now. Next question. Ooh, there we go. Hey, don't be shy. You're gonna run out of time if you're shy. And then you won't get to ask. And then you'll regret it. Don't regret it.
Shy, because I never know if my questions are relevant, but,
It's relevant.
okay, so teachers' unions, what is their financial motivation for keeping, how does it play out with keeping the public schools funded, and kind of maybe leading the question, who invests the pension funds of the teachers? And is the state responsible for the pension funds of the teachers, or does the union profit? Do they get, I used to work in the editors union, and union got money that was my pension fund, which then they invest, right? So what is the financial motivation for the teachers union?
So the financial driver for the teachers union is the dues that teachers pay. And I looked to Senator Revere, since Janus, they don't have to pay teachers dues, but it's not it's not well known. I don't think to publicize it, right? I mean, you kind of have to know it's low inside baseball. But the pensions are a state, in the end, it's a state liability. And those pensions are guaranteed but to them by the contract that they signed into when they first hired on. Those change over time when you're hired, but we can't go back and change anybody's contract for what their pension's gonna be we can't go back now and change pensions that people signed up for, because that was their expectation when they hired on. The state would have to go bankrupt, including the coal trust, so before we could change those pensions.
Did that answer your question, or do you want me to try to get one of these other 100%ers right?
Well, I guess what is the motivation? Is there a way to stop a teachers union? They're motivated by money, and that seems has nothing to do with the children. So is there a way to make that more transparent to the public and even the legislators when they're voting against school choice to see?
If there's a legislator or former legislator in here who would like to answer, I will add, I think that they do care about the students. I think that there is an incentive to make sure that they are promoting certain types of education at times to students if they're able to control that. Because I think that for a long time, there has been opportunities to kind of get the youth to grasp onto certain ideas that may be ideological. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. I mean, Finley went and he discovered that they're trying to teach teachers to tell them to go out and hide gender identity from their parents. I mean, this is a political ideology that they're pushing on to get teachers to adopt around the state. So this benefits them. It benefits their political interests. I think it benefits them monetarily. Is there another legislator or anyone that would like to speak to that? Otherwise, I'm gonna
I make a quick
bypass
comment.
it. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a really excellent conversation with the superintendent of schools here locally in Flathead. And I think we have a lot of brilliant minds in public education. The concern I have is they're not being forced by any other mechanism to change what they're doing. So they get educated in, public education, universities. They become part of unions. The teachers recertification or whatever it's called that Finley talked about. They go hear all these different messages, and they just don't need to really be accountable that much to the general public, and certainly not to legislators. So I would echo what you're saying. I think there's a lot of really brilliant people in there. It's not like we're way off. We just need to tweak it a little, fine tune it maybe.
All right, another question. Yes, Tania. And then I'll come up to you here, sir.
Kind of along those lines, it's kind of a school choice question, kind of a property tax question. So I look at my property tax bill and my grandmother's property tax bills, and they don't have small children in schools, and I plan to homeschool, and half of my property taxes are going to public schools. And I don't want to demonize school systems. I have friends and family members that are teachers, but if there are values that I don't agree with that are being taught in a school that I'm funding, how can we adjust that to be more relevant, that our taxes actually go to what we are morally wanting to do with our children? So if you want to put your kid in public school, do it, pay the taxes on it. If you don't, why is half of my funds going to that? So I don't know if that's a true property tax question for the life issue, but.
Well, I appreciate the question. We all pay taxes for things that we don't necessarily support or agree with or even appreciate. I don't know how you would create a menu of things where, okay, I'm going to pay for this, and this, but not this, and this. I certainly appreciate your sentiment. I just don't know how you would make something like that happen, because I just don't see how that, because there's probably a lot of people maybe that don't come into a building like this, don't have a spiritual background or a life worldview, that there's other things that we pay for in the state that they don't agree with. So, but maybe the Senate, the chairman of Senate Finance and Claims has some thoughts about this. No?
I think that's why we try and push the school choice stuff. And we did have a very significant win that came out of Montana, the Espinoza case. And since that, I don't think we've pushed as hard as we could for that. So before that case, there was, somebody's gonna remind me, it's a clause that says no public money can go to a private, basically a private school. And they took that as far as to say you couldn't give a tax credit ahead of time when that money hasn't even touched the state yet, and saying that was public dollars somehow going to a private school. That Espinoza case went to the United States Supreme Court and was overthrown. So that actually turned over something that is in our Constitution, as well as a number of other states that were written about the same time.
Is it Blaine Amendment?
The Blaine Amendment, yep, that's right. And so I think that will give us some runway to go with the school choice stuff. But we just have to get it through the legislature, and then I think the governor will sign it. He wants to be for school choice. So we just got to get it through the legislature, and sometimes that's difficult.
All right, we got one last question.
Concerning the assisted suicide, the numbers you mentioned coming out of Canada are absolutely shocking. Where does the medical lobby here come down on that when the subject comes up?
So we actually had the AMA, American Medical Association, Montana Medical Association, I think as well as the federal one group. They stand against it. They didn't have me put on an amendment that really clarified that palliative care does not qualify as physician-assisted suicide. So this kind of gets into the weeds, but it's pretty easy to explain. It's all about the intent that the doctor treats you with. Is the doctor intending to give you something that will kill you, or is he intending to alleviate your pain at the end of your life? And to alleviate your pain is fine. But to give you a prescription that will kill you, that is physician-assisted suicide. And it's all about intent. What does he intend by giving you that prescription? Did that answer your question?
All right, can we get a round of applause for our speakers tonight?